So China is now the biggest, one of the biggest, if not the biggest emitter in the world. Its economy is growing like crazy, and it has great ambitions to grow, continue to grow, and not only economically but in education, research, in the innovation, and so on. Nature had the spotlight on 4 research teams that are helping China's net zero energy goal, empowering the goal. China set 2060 as its net zero goal. This is a picture of a hybrid wind and solar power station near Zhangjiakou in Hebei province in northwest China, and energy researchers are helping to pivot the country to carbon neutral power by 2060 using both large and small scale projects. China is pumping enormous amount of research funds and has these 4 teams that are focused on helping it, and this is just a quick example of how a country can grow and still head aggressively towards net zero, hopefully serve as an example for the rest of the world, where debates about climate change, whether it's real or not, whether it's caused by humans or not, continue even as climate impacts continue to grow. And it is where some authoritarian system can work in a way to bring businesses to help the goals, as we will see in a minute. Okay, so it's one of the themes is focused on storing clean energy. So as we know, solar and wind have intermittency problem. That means they are not always available, which means you need a large storage system to deal with intermittency, or when the power is not available, you have to draw on the stored energy. China's largest pumped storage hydropower station in Jishi, Anhui province uses turbines such as the one on this right that are being constructed. Pumped hydro is excuse me. Pumped hydro is the most commonly used storage in China, but they're doing lots of research on other forms like compressed air, as we will see in a minute. So they have also funded separate teams to do this. And once you store the energy, you have to use it again. So how much of the stored energy can be transferred back to energy is also very critical. And they're also doing research on extracting as much energy as possible from the stored system to reduce the losses of converting back from storage to power. Okay, the second one, which is very critical, and I have written a lot about sub-seasonal to seasonal forecast for food, water, energy, health, and also transportation and so on. So the second team that's doing a lot of research is focusing on forecasting future needs. Since 2018, Wang's models have been used to forecast future power supplies at solar and wind farms in more than 20 provinces across China, including the large windy northwestern province of Xinjiang. These forecasts also help to predict how much coal power regions need, in addition to renewable resources, to meet the demand. Wang's more accurate prediction model has reduced levels of renewable energy waste in Xinjiang, for instance, from 4.6% in 2020 to 1.4% in 2021. So planning properly for degree cooling days, degree heating days, spikes in demand, etc., can obviously save energy from going into storage and converting back to storage. There can also be projections of future needs, like whether a given region, like an offshore wind farm, will continue to have wind in the future because of climate change. Will it have stronger winds? Will it have weaker winds? So you can have forecasting, predictions, and projections for energy needs. So there is heavy research going on in this as well. Okay. Harnessing offshore green energy. The third team is looking at this. Zheng's design. These are names of the team leaders that are funded to do these research. So I'm just taking bits of text from the Nature Spotlight to highlight these specific research teams. Zheng's design is the first in China to combine wind and solar power with aquaculture. So it's offshore and it's green. As such, there are no previous versions of his team can study to better understand how the system would work in the real world. So they are the first seminal leading research that is being done. So they have to just document what they learn and hopefully transfer this knowledge to the rest of the world on how to do offshore green energy. US, as you know, has proposed offshore energy as well under Biden. One has to see where it goes, but you can imagine that if you invest lots of money in offshore wind, for example, and climate change causes the winds to die down, then you have to worry about return on investments or build floating platforms so that you can move the offshore wind structures to where the wind may be still available. Of course, that increases the cost, and there is always the issue of transporting that energy or transmission of that energy from far distances offshore to where it can be used or where it can feed the grid and so on. Okay, turning air into electricity. In August 2021, researchers at the Institute of Engineering Thermophysics, part of the Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing, turned compressed air that had been cooled and stored in underground salt mines into electricity. A month after the demonstration in Faisheng in Shandong province, eastern China, the power station was officially connected to the country's national grid, making China only the third country in the world to produce grid electricity this way. So compressed air energy storage technology has existed for more than 4 decades, but thus far just 2 other countries, Germany and the United States, have been operating full-scale CAES case systems, and now China is the third country to join this. So essentially what happens is during off-peak hours, electricity is used to compress and store air in cold, deep places where not much energy is required to keep it compressed and cold. And then when the electricity is demanding more power, that air is then used to generate additional power to meet the peak demand. So low and high pressure expanders, here it is motor and compressor to put the air down during off peak hours, and during peak hours to meet the demand, you put it through the generators, low and high pressure expanders, some fuel is involved, and there is a recuperator and a heat exhaust. So you can see how a limestone cavern is used here as an example to store 338 million cubic feet of air. And US has actually mapped such geological storage systems where air can be stored and how that is near to where the wind power generation is possible, and so on. Of course, this can be done for electricity, for solar and wind as well. So this is a CAES system. World Economic Forum had an article in July 2021 talking about how China can build a nature positive and net zero economy. Nature positive is a concept that has been developed now under IUCN, the International Union of Conservation Networks. So a global goal for nature embraced at the highest levels will drive ambition in governments, business and society in China. This is kind of the schematic that's used with indicators of biodiversity here. We are of course heading for a while now of the so-called sixth extinction, even though not everybody would agree with this terminology, but obviously the rapid increase in greenhouse gases and the associated increases in temperature, changes in rainfall, vegetation patterns associated with land use change, urbanization and so on have been affecting all sorts of species, insects, birds, bees, megafauna and vegetation and so on. And the idea is that this downward trend must be reversed by 2030. 2030, so that zero net loss of nature is the aim from 2020 onwards, and net nature positive is where we are going to recover the biodiversity, and with the full recovery by 2050. Of course, depends on the baseline one would use, but even halting the loss of biodiversity obviously is going to be very critical. So China has a society of entrepreneurs and ecology where it holds these meetings, and you can see this is on case sharing of ecological protection in business. So there is the moderator and there are the dialogue speakers. President of Changsha Broadhomes Industrial Group. This is the Geo-Environmental Engineering and Technology Group. This is Sustainable Development of Asia. This is Beijing Organic and Beyond Corporation Chairman. So industries are now considered as part of the teams or partners in trying to meet these nature positive goals and protecting ecology. So this is just a very brief introduction towards how China is already started putting funds behind its net zero goals, identifying key areas of generating energy, offshore green for example, storing energy, forecasting for optimizing the storage and use of energy, and of course heading towards net zero by also including nature positive as one of the goals as suggested by their own government, which has an office of biodiversity conservation or some such thing. So obviously all countries have to do this, because even though a lot of net zero promises have been made, very soon there have to be action in moving towards this goal, because 2060 is far off. For India, 2070 is even further off. So will the political will begin to act right now to put research funds in areas where there is advances to be made very rapidly to head towards these net zero goals rapidly. Okay, so this is a challenge, and hopefully China provides a good example.